Yeah. And I'm always like, you know, it takes a lot for me to get through. It has to be very well-recommended fiction for me. So when I saw this, I'm like, comic wrote a book. How good could this be?
And it's self-published.
Well, but the cover is pretty compelling.
Thanks, man. Richard Ingersoll.
Well, who's that?
He's a kid that I grew up with.
Oh, it's great. Yeah. Like, to the point where my friend, the novelist, Sam Lipsyte, his son saw this book, because I sent it to Sam. I had 2 copies.
Oh, yeah.
Because I found the one that you'd sent like a year ago. And I sent it to Sam, who's a great novelist. And his son saw it and was like, oh, that cover's fire. That's what I got. That's what
fire?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah, and this is a kid that don't read. They're trying to get him interested in shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you got him halfway.
That's a big deal.
But so I start reading it, and I'm like, oh, my God, this is about us. Like, it's not... It's not a memoir. It doesn't feel like a memoir at all, but it is about the world of comedy. No one's written about this.
No.
About this part of it. And this is a real part of it. You know, this guy is probably a couple years older than me, it feels like, that generation, where, you know, they were around for that 80s boom. And a lot of them thought they were going places, but then they weren't. And then the boom sort of receded, and sort of with their own particular problems, are left to scramble for a livelihood, you know, in one-nighters.
Yeah, they were shipwrecked, pretty much.
But, like, I knew this guy, like, and the way you sort of blend in real dudes at certain points, where I'm like, you're going to put Rick Kearns in here, and Rick Kearns is the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if anyone's the guy, it's that guy.
Uh-huh. Kearns is the man.
But he's not quite even that guy, because, you know, he escaped into radio for a while.
Yeah.
You know, some of those dudes from the 80s, you know, figured out another way. And he got into radio. I guess he had some health issues. I did the San Francisco comedy competition with Kearns, and I was driving him around, dude.
Oh, my God.
And he's a mind fucker, dude. Yeah. Like, you know, hey, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. And, you know, just like, and he'd get you so fucking bummed out by the time you got to the gig. He'd be like, you all right? And I'm like, I'm not. And then he'd go up and he'd fucking brain fuck you, that guy.
So I've only known positive Kearns. And now he's taken a dark turn, of course.
He has?
Yeah, like his daughter did stand up in Denver, and I'm friends with Elise. And then Rick came out of retirement pretty much and would come to open mics and just watch comedy. It's like, who's this old creep?
Yeah,
just drinking vodka straight. And then he ended up being very helpful to me and a bunch of Denver comics because he loves comedy.
He's hilarious. He was one of the great unappreciated acts. He's definitely one of the Billy Ray Schaefers of the world.
Definitely.
Who's the protagonist of your novel. But, Kearns is like, there's a couple of those guys that were like Kenny Rogerson's another one he was in Boston when I was coming up.
You had that great live episode.
Yeah. And Kenny was like fucking great. He was so fucking funny. And Kearns, too. Like, Kearns I would see when I was a doorman at the Comedy Store sometimes. But then when I got to San Francisco and he came around, but he just, his delivery was great. He's a rare thing. He's the rare kind of like cranky guy. The cranky guys that are funny and don't have to work for it, that's a rare type. And they're like, they should be cherished at all costs.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't happen that often.
There should be a statue of Kearns in front of Comedy World.
Didn't he have fucking major health issues?
Yeah. He's a bad booze hound.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. It's not fun.
He's still that way?
Yeah, man. He'll call me and be like, I got a new bit. And then he'll repeat it like 3 times in an hour. It's brutal.
I thought he was sober for a while, was he?
He was sober for a while.
No. The last time I saw him, he's like, I sold my whole act to Ron White.
Yeah, he did.
For like $250,000.
I think Ron wrote him a check at dinner.
Yeah. Ron writes a lot of checks for people.
Yeah, Ron's the man. I work with Ron a lot.
Do you?
He's cool.
Yeah, he's great.
We did a couple shows at Pootie's Roadhouse in Texas, which was owned by Willie Nelson's old manager or road manager.
Yeah.
And Ron just ate mushrooms all day for the 3 days we were in this house together.
Oh, he's just an animal, dude.
Yeah.
He's like an old dude.
And then he'll have these moments of epiphany, like you're on his tour bus and he's surrounded by people who love him.
Yeah.
And then he'll just say shit like, I'm gonna fucking die, man. Nothing's gonna save me. And you're like tripping and you got a check in your pocket from him and he's rich as hell and you're like, oh, Ron, it's fine. He's like, it's not fine. You don't know anything. You're like, okay, let's get Ron a towel.
Of course that's true. I sat next to him on an airplane and watched him ask for more butter. And I'm like, dude, What are you doing?
Yeah, and it's funny. He'll smoke 8 cigars, but he'll drink like Michelob Ultra, so he's doing better.
And his tequila.
Yeah.
I always feel baffling about the dudes that get into the spirits racket.
It's just merch.
Yeah, I know it's merch, but he's got some weird ones. He just loves to start shit. Mm-hmm. He had a ceramics thing in Mexico, right?
Uh-huh.
And he had he's got the tequila. I'm surprised he didn't get a restaurant. Does he have a restaurant?
I don't think so. I don't think he eats a lot of beef jerky and nuts.
He's definitely amazing that he's alive.
For sure.
And he's one of those guys that can fucking, just get up there, do a show in a blackout.
Uh-huh.
Like, not even know he's on stage kind of dude. Right?
But crush.
Yeah, crush, totally.
Yeah. And I don't know. I just think maybe your brain gets to a point where it's used to operating that way. So he can go from being on the tour bus wearing sweatpants and then put his jacket on and he's on stage and just people can't get enough.
It's crazy.
It's something I kind of admire that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. There's something to be admired about a guy who is just swimming in fucking garbage inside and can just go up there like a robot almost.
Yeah.
But kill. I mean, that's something that the Schaefer guy does in the book, kind of. Like the number of times you've figured out new ways to describe a hungover sky. The number of times you described a sky either through a hangover or through those moments of clarity. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Thanks,
you didn't
man.
repeat yourself. I was surprised.
Thank you. Me too. My dad was the editor, so he had a hand in it.
Oh, he made sure it's like that. Yeah, I think you might use this adjective in the last description of the sky.
My friend Nathan Lund's in the book.
Yeah.
And I called him porcine like 8 times in the first draft.
Yeah, porcine.
Yeah, my dad was like, "You got to figure out a new word to call Nathan fat." Corpulent, piggish, whatever.
Yeah. So anyways, college doesn't work out.
Yeah.
And then you go, you're in a band?
Yeah, so I played drums. My dad played drums. And I played a bunch of drums in high school with my buddy Clay, who learned to play bass along to my drumming.
Yeah.
And then he was in Ithaca, so I was like, fuck this. I'm going to go up there and just take LSD and be in this band. And we toured a lot, and it was a really important thing.
So he was in
me.
college. This is the commune times.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how old were you, like 20?
I was like 20, yeah. I couldn't drink legally yet.
But you guys were a band that toured a lot?
All the time.
What was the name of the band?
Red versus Black. It was
Records?
Red versus Black.
No, but were there records?
We would, burn our own CDs and make our own merch and sell them.
Yeah?
No records.
So you were in that loop, the anarchy punk loop?
We were just in a very sincere loop.
But I mean, that's who came out to see you? Were you opening for people, or did you? No?
No, I mean, we would go play. We only played all ages shows in DIY venues. We wouldn't play in bars. We weren't ever a hit.
Right. No, I get it. But did you, but you did it.
We worked really hard.
Life.
Yeah, we really were we tried to be like Black Flag and Minutemen in our ethos.
Right.
And we'd show up to these places where kids were wearing the uniform with like the crass patches on and their denim jackets.
Yeah.
And I'd be in basketball shorts, and Clay would be in a sleeveless denim shirt.
Yeah.
And we would just tackle the stage, and people would be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
They didn't have the synapses yet in their heads to deal with who we were.
Right.
And that was really cool to freak people out by looking normal.
Right.
Yeah.
Huh. So, well, that's sort of a tradition for a certain type of punk rocker. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like Mike Watt and that crew.
Dude. Mike Watt, I got tattoos of his all over me.
Really?
I love Mike Watt. He changed my life. I met him once. I was at the...
Econo, dude.
Yeah. I mean, that's my whole life. I make all my own merch. I print my book,
Yeah.
It's all because of Mike Watt and D. Boone. But I met him once, and I was downstairs in Mobile, Alabama, and he was upstairs.
Uh-huh.
And they told me, Mike Watt is playing upstairs. And I was supposed to do an hour. I did 15 minutes. And then they were
stand-up?
Yeah, and they were furious. And I was like, keep the money. I got to go watch Mike Watt upstairs. And I totally just Mark David Chapman'd him. I just paced by the stage with my arms crossed, not blinking, with this dead-eyed look on my face. And then afterward, he was at his merch booth selling his merch, and I went up to him, and I was like, hey, you know you. And he was like, I know, big fella. I know. And he gave me a hug and then ushered me out of the room. I definitely bummed out Mike Watt.
Oh, no, you didn't.
I don't think so, but I'm a very sincere and also I'm huge.
Yeah.
So when those two things come together, people flip out.
Yeah.
No one's comfortable.
Yeah, but they know. He's probably he probably knew you're a good-hearted dude.
Yeah, and also I'm sure he's dealt with me since 1981.
But he's pretty present, sort of in it guy. He's got his own language, that guy.
Yes, dude.
It's when I interviewed him, I'm like, he's speaking Mike Watt language.
Yeah.
and you got to kind of figure it out.
He plays the thud staff. He's the man in the van with the bass in his hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when my buddy Clay turned me on to the Minutemen in high school, and we were like listening to The Damned and Black Flag and all those bands, and we were like, we know what punk is, because my dad he played punk when I was growing up, like the Pistols. And, and
that's
Clay,
just rock.
It was rock, but also when you're 8 and your dad's doing the dishes to the Sex Pistols, you're like, this is the coolest man alive.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, we found the Minutemen, and we were like, what have we been doing?
Right.
What is this? This is mutant rock.
Yeah.
And then we found Lightning Bolt and all the John Dwyer bands, and it was like, okay, we are incorrect.
Yeah.
We thought we had it figured out. I'm going to take this Misfits patch off my leather jacket.
Right.
And we're going to make pilgrimages to like Providence and New York and stuff.
Yeah, because these are the guys that are going out there. These are the astronauts, not the hacks.
Right. And they're also sincere dudes.
Yeah, for sure.
I always really like when people are earnest in their art.
Well, those two, Watt and Dwyer, are very sincere.
Yeah.
And they're very different.
And they're like very masculine without being disgusting about it.
Right. And
they have integrity.
Right. And they're because the integrity is that, we're going to keep making this music for us.
Yeah.
We don't give a fuck. This is what we do. Mm-hmm. This is our shit.
And maybe we'll find the people who like it.
Right.
And hopefully they'll love it too.
Right.
Or we'll just, Well,
that's sort of what you try to do with comedy, I think, too. Some people, anyways. It's it's a little trickier.
Yeah.
Because of, what you're up against is that you're just talking.
Yep.
So, but that was sort of this. That was interesting about the book too. Was that like he had this respect, he had these chops, but he could riff, right? So that was his big gift, is that he could rip apart an audience. It is a double-edged sword that when you can do that, you can get pretty fucking lazy.
Yeah, you stink of the road.
Yeah, but it depends on how hacky you are with it. But sometimes those are the best moments. Like I write on stage. I don't know how you do it.
100%.
So like when you have those moments delivered to you, you're like, oh my God, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
Because you're basically cornering yourself.
Then you let your ego have to back up what you've got, your mouth has gotten you into.
Sure. And if it's not going well, you've got to figure out instinctively how to get the laugh to get out of the discomfort.
Or burn it down.
Sure.
Go down swinging.
Yeah, just like surrender. Like, well, this isn't going to happen.
Look, I tried really hard. Look how sweaty I am. Look how many shirts I've taken off up here.
But the old time guys would tell you, like, don't acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't buy that shit. Like, I got Freddie Roman got on my shit once about whining about bombing, on while I was doing it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't owe them my fucking heart.
Yeah.
I'll either blame them, blame myself, but if I can't get a laugh out of the humiliation, what the fuck am I doing up here?
Well, that's why we were lucky in Denver, because we had guys like Rick and, Chuck Roy, who, if you were complaining at all, would be like, man, you don't know what pain is. And then they'd tell you some horror story about being in a crab shack in New Hampshire.
The crab shack in New Hampshire.
Well, just those gigs you guys had to do back in the day.
Well, yeah, there's one-nighters everywhere, but that was also, like, the other thing about this book is that, like, some of those one-nighters that, low-level corporate gigs or, like, gigs that, like, bookers, get you, that are, they couldn't afford another act, or colleges that sucked.
They really wanted Dustin Diamond.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he'll bring people in. Everyone knows who he is.
For sure, Screech.
Yeah, or else they just can't, they don't have the money, so you get pawned off on these things. And I was never right for any of those things, so I would do these gigs where it was just like, there's no way. These odds are stacked against me. I'm not the happy guy.
No. No, and I don't like anyone in this room. I would never have anything to talk to. And I started doing those gigs when I came up. I'd go feature for these dudes in like Wyoming, South Dakota.
Well, where'd you wait? So how'd that happen? So you get done with the band? Was that how'd that end? Did that just fade, or was it a dramatic thing? Like,
no, me and Clay are still tight.
But you just decided not to pursue music?
Well, no. So I always played music, but then there's a real lost period too, because I was eating acid a lot.
Really?
Yeah.
In Denver?
Sure. No, like in Ithaca. Well, everywhere.
The commune? It was just the acid thing.
Yeah, it was cool. And I would sell acid to those kids.
I never understood the guys that like could get used to acid. For me, it was for me, it was like the one, the 3 or 4 times I did it in my life, it was a lot to build up to.
Yeah.
And then it was sort of like, oh, I don't know when this is going to end, but I don't know who I am anymore. And
For sure.
Yeah. So I never understood guys who are like 3 times a week,
Well, I don't think we knew the proper dosage either. Because like back in the day when you got mushrooms, you had to eat the entire bag.
Yeah,
you wouldn't eat a gram of mushrooms. Right. You would eat the 8.
But with mushrooms, you knew you were going to come down.
Yeah, but I think mushrooms are much more. they're much more spiritual, for lack of a better term. Whereas mushroom is like, or when acid, you're like, I am on drugs.
Yeah, yeah.
I am high on drugs right now.
Right. Yeah.
So I moved back to Denver, and me and Clay still had the band, and we started this DIY house, this punk house called Mouth House in Denver.
Mouth House?
Yeah. And we just had shows every night, and it was just